the year 2025, some fat loser named Nihilistic Nerd reviewed a long-forgotten game known as The Last Story.
The Last Story launched in the United States on the 12th of August. It was one of 3 Operation Rainfall titles that Nintendo of Japan plan on cucking the United States out of. Why is that? You tell me. I'm just gonna blame it on X-Play's rampant anti-Japanese rhetoric.
But I'm Sagi.
Rhymes with Saki. Saki! Which I could use a lot of right now.
Sagi.
Saki!
The 2 other titles were Pandora's Tower and Xenoblade Chronicles. I don't know anything about Pandora's Tower, and it would be pretty pointless for me to try to talk to you about Xenoblade Chronicles, because of the 3, that's the only one that really hit the mainstream. For better or worse. I would argue for worse. If this video can get at least 20 likes, I will review Pandora's Tower. Aside from that, let's get down with this review. The Last Story was developed by Mistwalker Studios. It would be their last console game for about a decade. Between that, they would release several, you guessed it, mobile games. And even their latest console game was a port of a mobile game. That said, Mistwalker also made The Lost Odyssey, as well as Blue Dragon, 2 niche but beloved JRPGs. I got The Last Story back in the day when it launched, but I never really got too far in it before setting it down and playing something else. The most I remember about it was its horrible automatic control scheme, and that it came in a case that resembled a book, which was admittedly pretty cool. Well, I finally got around to beating it, and I want to talk about it, so here we go. Just a heads up, the footage for this video was recorded on an emulator. During recording, I had some issues with the graphics settings. The upscaling caused some defects on the footage. I won't be considering those when it comes to my final verdict on the game, because in theory, they're not a problem if you're playing a legit copy and not using an HD TV. The Last Story has a pretty generic narrative. You take the role of Zale, a young mercenary with aspirations to become a knight. During a routine mission, he stumbles upon the ancient magical power of the Outsider, which is told to be the salvation of his people. Things escalate further after he falls in love with a noble known as Callista. This happens 5 minutes after meeting her. I feel like the romance in this game comes off kinda stiff. Now, there might be some people out there that disagree with me.
Callista!
You can hear the song too?
Yeah. Light's coming from inside.
Seems the voice is coming from there too. What? That's my castle you're kicking down.
One more should do the trick.
But those are also the same people that think Romeo and Juliet is a romantic story. If you read the script, you would know why it's not. I don't want to get too deep into the story, so I'll just say it's a pretty typical JRPG narrative. You know, you're trying to court a wench when you're swept into a larger conflict. The next thing you know, you're felling gods and kings in the name of love. While I was pretty uninterested in the overarching story, I did find myself really enjoying the characters, so let's discuss them. Aside from Zale and Callista, there are 5 other playable party members. They're all introduced immediately, as they're all part of the same mercenary group.
Looks like we have a new client.
Woo! All right! Just as we're about to run out of money, too.
Thanks to someone getting hammered all the time.
Shut it! I risked my life out there. Let me drink in peace.
So, may I ask who our next client is?
It's Count Arganon.
Wow. The ruler of Lazarus Island. That's quite a result.
There's a huge cannon on that island. But all that magic is dangerous. It draws all kinds of monsters to the area.
And we have to clean up, right?
You have a problem with that?
As long as I get paid, I ain't complaining.
Yeah, right.
Dagran is Zale's friend, and the leader of the group. He's a bit more hardcore than Zale, and willing to pull some shady shit to get his way.
Don't you feel anything, Dagran? This meaningless conflict is only going to get worse.
When have we ever complained about getting mixed up in meaningless conflicts? The only difference is that now, people will appreciate you for it. If you do well, then you can expect to be rewarded. What more do you want?
Seren is the crew's drunk. She's standoffish and brash, but she dual wields, wears skimpy clothing, and has some of the best banter in the crew.
You know what this place is, right?
Huh? No, can't say I do.
Oh, really? Still, you're a guy, right? I know how it is. You have a certain needs from time to time.
Seren.
But don't you worry. When you feel the urge, this is the place to sort yourself out. I know, everyone's embarrassed their first time. But once you get the hang of it, you'll be back for more.
I really don't think...
Oh, don't be such a scaredy cat. You'll never get any better if you don't practice. Go on, be a man and get stuck in. Here at the arena!
Arena?
Yeah! Nothing like a good old fight. Why? What did you think it was?
On the topic of good party banter, the blonde is Lowell. He's kind of a spell sword that specializes in ice magic. More importantly, he's funny and a womanizer.
My dad gave me some advice before he died. He said, son, if you see a beautiful woman, you have to flirt with her. It's rude not to. My granddad said so too. And the blacksmith next door.
So, in short, you like flirting?
I don't like it. I live it. It's a big responsibility, being a fine specimen of a man like myself.
Wait, does this mean you've even tried flirting with Mirania?
Of course. It's just... she didn't even notice I was flirting with her.
What about Seren?
Well, I only like women. Ah! Watch it, Seren!
The dialogue between Seren and Lowell is probably one of my favorite parts of the game. I was grinning ear to ear whenever these two were both on screen.
Something wrong?
It's okay. I get it. No need to explain. No one's judging you here.
Zale, I have to say, well done, mate.
I guess this means he's taken after you now, Lowell. That's a pity.
Yep, all my hard work's paid off. I'm so proud of the lad.
It's not like that.
Lowell, listen to how it sounds. I think it's hollow.
Really? Huh? My ball.
Serves you right for being such a naughty boy.
Yurik is the youngest member of the crew. He's gifted with fire magic. He's quiet and would much rather spend his time brooding in the corner than engaging in debauchery with the others.
Come on, Yurik. Why don't you sit with the rest of us?
I can do without all the shouting and singing and spilling things. On the battlefield, yes. But my services don't extend to socialising in the pub. We can't all be delightful social butterflies like Seren. Anyway, I'm going upstairs. Using magic really wears me out. More than you might realise.
Finally, we have Mirania, who looks like a hot goth mommy, but she's actually a nature lover. I like her character design a lot, but compared to the others, she feels less utilized, at least in the story. She's an excellent nature magic user, I guess. Basically, this just means she's a great healer on the battlefield.
What are you doing down here, Mirania?
I found some rare medicinal herbs. I was just examining them.
Oh, you're right. I don't recognize any of these.
I remember when I was young. They used to grow everywhere. Don't you think these flowers are beautiful too? In the forest where I grew up, when it was spring, blossoms like these would dance across the whole sky. Though of course, that forest no longer exists.
Because of the war?
No, I don't actually know the reason. It was as if the forest had simply lost the energy to go on living. It just withered away. That's why I set out on this journey. To find out the reason why.
Circling back around to Callista, since I didn't really cover her gameplay role, she provides support with holy magic, aka heals and buffs. I haven't discussed Zale too much, but we'll talk about him a little bit more when we get into gameplay. That's it for party members, but there's a ton of supporting casts that they interact with, like the bar wench, the closeted homosexual, stern nightman. I was really hoping Sir Therius would become a party member. I mean, look at that concept art. He's too cool to be relegated to supporting cast. Unfortunately, he is. Then you got evil geriatric and not evil geriatric. I definitely can't forget about this wiener. Horace joins you a couple times as a temporary party member. Actually, about half the characters I just mentioned join you at one time or another. Also, Horace runs the upgrade shop, so he's chill. The last story sets up multiple villains. Some are contagonists, like Count Arganin and Lord Geralt, who either oppose Zale or seek to use him as a mean to their end. These two are pretty well fleshed out and have personal motives as well as a direct connection to Zale. Then there's the Garag, who are the big opposing force, the Sauron and his army, if you will. Unlike the other villains, the notable Garag don't get a lot of screen time, so they don't feel as noteworthy, despite being a huge part of the plot. This is fine, I guess. They're not close to home like the others, but at the same time, the most important Garag character, Zangorak, is nothing more than a Temu version of Ganondorf in both design and character motivation. To be clear, Horace has more characterization than Zangorak. The last story is a linear action RPG. Rather than having an explorable open world, the game is divided into short chapters, most akin to something like a character action game, but not quite. Rather than using a simple mission structure, the game allows you to interact with Lazarus City, to do things like side quests, visit the arena to grind out levels and money, upgrade gear, or talk to party members. This happens pretty frequently. I think this helps it feel more like a JRPG, but you're still very limited in what you can do between combat segments. There are side quests in this game, but they aren't marked, so most of the time you'll just randomly come across them. While the side quests aren't really all that notable, there are a few missable optional chapters that have full-on combat scenarios. Speaking of combat, first things first, there are two control schemes, automatic and manual. Automatic is designed with the default Wiimote and Nunchuck in mind. This will get me a lot of hate, but becoming an adult is realizing that the motion controls on the Wii suck, and even the good games that utilized motion controls were made worse because of it. The biggest noticeable difference between automatic and manual mode is how attacking works. In automatic mode, if you walk near an enemy, you'll start attacking them. This is not good, especially if you need to reposition, because there's a chance you might start attacking a nearby foe. Manual mode plays more like a traditional action game. It allows for significantly more freedom. It removes auto attacks, and you'll have more buttons at your disposal, as well as complete camera control. The camera will still fight you, and it moves about as fast as my girlfriend did after I fell in the shower last week. Babe, help! Babe!
Nerd cried out in vain, for his girlfriend was too busy watching a gay internet has-been and his homosexual co-host play board games.
With that being said, I still believe that manual mode is the superior control scheme. Automatic mode should only be used if you're lame. Figuratively and literally. 95% of the time you'll be playing as Zale. He uses a sword and a crossbow. Melee is pretty bland for an action game. You won't be using any impressive hack and slash combos, and even the things like dodge rolling and guard counters don't feel very fun, because many fights are far too chaotic to do any of that effectively. Also, the hit detection is kind of ass. However, you can do things like run up a wall, which is kinda cool. Zale also uses a crossbow. I hated using it because it's shooter mechanics on the controller. Now, before you say, but nerd, you can use the Wii motion to aim. You can't, it's not available in the game. Taking any damage resets your aim. It's maddening. Upon that, the camera movement is also way too slow in first person. Even when I was behind cover trying to change ammo types, there was nothing really stopping an enemy from just waltzing up and attacking me. Yeah, there's a cover mechanic in this game, but I found it to be relatively pointless outside of some specific scenarios. There are some fights where you can use the environment to your advantage. You'll have to identify these in the first person mode. Again, I don't like the first person mode in this game. Zale has a couple unique skills. Gathering is Zale's most important skill. It's the skill given to him by the outsider. Gathering aggroes all enemies and allows Zale to instantly revive any fallen ally up to 5 times. Each party member has 5 lives per combat encounter. And of course, when the character you're playing loses all 5 lives, it's game over. While gathering, Zale can absorb incoming damage and then deactivate it. This is called a gathering burst. It will cause gravity damage, and if you absorb enough damage, it can completely stop enemies. Gale is Zale's other ability. To use it, you'll need to have at least 1 tick in your skill bar. It can be used to damage, reposition, and diffuse magical circles. Diffusing ally magical circles allows for buffs to allies and debuffs for enemies. You can also defuse enemy circles as well. And finally, there is command mode. This is where you're given a chance to have some control over your allies. To enter command mode, the skill bar must be completely full. Party members will have 3 skills, whether that be magic or otherwise, as well as a 4th option, retreat. This has the character jump back to a safe spot, usually a heal magic circle. Casting a spell in command mode also sets the cast time to 3 seconds.
What do you say?
I can use my power to call the Lazarus Sentinel. I believe in guardian legend, but I think I can only do it once. I'll leave the telling up to you.
The last story tries to combine combat with tactical gameplay, but it also kind of fails at that. I mean, there are several instances where the game gives you a top-down perspective of the battlefield and just begs for you to come up with some sort of tactical plan before engaging in combat. There were rarely sequences where I felt like I was tactfully eliminating my opponents. Usually I wound up just killing shit, since the moment combat begins, both enemies and allies start scrambling all over the arena, whacking each other. Moments where I wanted to have control or pull off a cool stunt, I couldn't, because there were 15 guys shooting me, or my allies. Furthermore, the lack of battlefield control at any time makes the whole tactical system almost pointless. This isn't just a problem for the tactical gameplay, the action combat doesn't feel very fluid either. The cover system is more annoying than useful. Upon that, certain enemies use ranged hit scan attacks, so you can't properly dodge them, and it makes things like ranged combat, grabbing and throwing bombs, and scanning for environmental advantages a complete pain in the ass. I really wish I could have commanded my party to do things like take a specific position, cease fire, or target a specific enemy, and I wish the action combat would have been better. These aren't bad systems, but neither of them feel fleshed out enough to stand up on their own. That's not to say it's all bad. Mistwalker did create some interesting scenarios. One of the most memorable missions was the Haunted Mansion mission. The game switches from a moody fantasy to a B-horror flick, as each of your party members are spirited away by unseen forces.
Wait! Don't eat me! I taste terrible! There's a girl I know! She's some real prime beef!
Damn it, lol!
After you free them from their sarcophagi, you regroup and face off against the boss, which is some specter thing who's invulnerable to all damage. This part has you command the party to flee and play what is basically Pac-Man, but instead of power pellets, you need silver arrows. Once you hit the specter with a silver arrow, it starts running away, and this is where you just beat its ass until it regains invulnerability. Then rinse and repeat.
Man-eating mansion? Ha! Nothing to it.
Oh, so you weren't flapping about, screaming like a little girl?
Me scream? No idea what you're talking about.
You've, pissed your pants there.
What? It's sweat.
Another moment I thought was memorable was the first invasion of the Garak stronghold, which starts off as a slow-paced stealth scouting style mission that almost immediately escalates into a full-blown shit show once the Lazulus Knights show up and begin their invasion. This part sees Zale and crew fighting alongside the Lazulus Knights to take down the Garak king. What I'm trying to say here is that Mistwalker really did attempt to create multiple scenarios that asked the players to adapt to different situations. Sometimes it worked out, and sometimes it didn't. One of the early boss fights is against a spider that will shoot its web at an ally, and then drag them toward it and spin them up in a web. If that happens, they're removed instantly from combat. You can have Zale use Gale to sever the webbing. It's a simple fight otherwise. It spawns smaller spiders that can stun you. These are the actual threat. The Kraken boss was the first of 4 times I game overed in the last story. Not because the boss was hard, but because the mechanics were frustrating. And I'm a retard. First, you need to use command mode to switch Lowell to berserk mode. This will stop him from casting ice magic that heals the boss. Then you need to cut down all the tentacles. Using Gathering Bursts at max to time stop all of the tentacles is a very good strategy here. You just gotta be careful that you don't get surrounded, otherwise you're gonna get fist fucked by tentacles. Not that tentacles really have fists, I suppose, but it's besides the point. Once the tentacles are all severed, you can vertical slash the Kraken for massive damage. Periodically, the Kraken will shoot a death ray at a wall, causing it to collapse. The area of effect is not really telegraphed. I think you're supposed to use retreat here, but the one time I tried it, it failed. What got me killed was Moriana, my only healer, got thirsted. The second time around, I was a little bit more careful about my positioning and won. I already mentioned that the last story has a very linear nature. At all times, your party is set by the narrative rather than player choice. This gives the characters time in the spotlight and arguably changes up the scenario enough to mitigate some of the repetitiveness. One complaint I have with this isn't how often the party splits up, it's that a lot of time, I don't get to see what happens while they were away. They just kind of reappear at just the right time. Some folks might dislike this departure from the norm, but I think it works in favor of the characters. And to be honest, if I had a choice, I'd have just gone with Moriana in the party for every situation. As someone who has played a decent amount of JRPGs, I can confirm that it is very easy to get set into a pattern of using the same 3 or 4 characters for 40 hours. So the execution here isn't a negative for me. Also, you can repeat a lot of the levels with a custom party if you're that concerned. I feel like I should mention the online modes, but I haven't played them, so I can't really say too much. Judging from the wiki, it seems like you were able to play a deathmatch mode and a co-op mode. Deathmatch appears to have offered a lot of playable characters aside from the main party. Players could fight in 2v2 to 3v3 battles. Co-op allowed up to 5 people to team up against various bosses. I wish I had a chance to try this one. It seems like it could be a fun way to kill an afternoon. While the graphics of the last story can be summed up as a slightly better looking GameCube game, I think what really stuck out to me was the set pieces and the mood, rather than the graphical fidelity. Lazarus City is a bustling city at the foot of a massive castle with Magitech-powered cannons. The bar that Zale and crew live in is always lively and filled with patrons. This is contrasted by the barren waste that is the Garak Fortress, or the cold, uninviting crypts under the island. I love how the last story balances its setting. While it definitely doesn't have all the whimsy of a world like Zelda or Dragon Quest, there's still a sense that joy can exist. However, there's also an ever-present sense of uncertainty and moroseness, but not to the degree of something like Dark Souls. Hell, not even close to something like Diablo. I appreciate that it doesn't lean into one or the other. Most of the tracks in the last story are orchestral pieces. I didn't find most of the songs to be super memorable, aside from the main theme. I thought that one was pretty good. It's got this somber feeling to it, and I always appreciate depressing title screen music. Also, when you press start, it shifts into a more triumphant theme. Order and Chaos is the normal battle theme. It features some strings and percussion instruments. It alternates between a tense bassy section, which culminates into a triumphant explosion of horns. I don't know why I included this on my script. I don't know anything about music theory, and I'm autistic. I listened to Resonance on repeat for 2 hours yesterday. For some reason, there are a few boss fights that go with jazz rock, which I'll admit was a lot more memorable than the other stuff. I don't really think that it's because they're particularly good tracks. I think it's because there's such a huge tonal shift from all the other music within the game. Yeah, if you think that's strange, listen to the final boss music. Remember when this was orchestral music? The Last Story is a game I like, despite its glaring faults. I think the romance felt forced, and the story was bland as well, but I also really liked the setting, and I really liked the characters that were driving the story. The Last Story is a rare RPG where I didn't find myself disliking a single party member. They all grow throughout the story, some more than others, and that's what kept me going. Now, would I suggest playing it? Well, that's a hard one. Combat is a good portion of this game, and it doesn't feel rewarding. There is some standout moments, but 7 out of 10 times it's just a case of going through the motions. And that's my biggest problem with the game, is I see a really cool idea that I want to engage with, but the idea isn't executed meaningfully, and it ultimately ends up feeling bad for that. There's a reason why most well-known tactical action games wind up being turn-based in the end. Tactical games require thoughts and planning for a long game, where action games are built for reaction speed, muscle memory, and moveset knowledge. I do applaud the attempt, but I just don't think it came together this time. I do hope to see Mistwalker or another dev studio take a crack at this style of gameplay again sometime in the future. Though it might be one of those scenarios where the concept sounds good on paper, but doesn't quite play out in execution.
And so, Nihilistic Nerd's review comes to an abrupt close because he forgot to film an outro. Thank you for watching.
Oh, Zale. While I was at the bar, you turned into a rather handsome chap.
Why? What? Why?
But I'll tell you something about handsome chaps, Zale. Alright, being handsome's not enough for them. They're all shallow chaps, lying chaps, cheating chaps. And if they're handsome on top, I'm supposed to fall for them. And I know one handsome chap who's all three. Oh, look! There he is.
Hey, at least you admit I'm handsome.
See what a horrible flirt he is? Don't you dare turn into that, Zale.
Don't turn into a raging alcoholic like her either.